Welcome to the first episode of this new series titled Production Decimation that covers on the hellish production and development of many projects in the television and film industry that consists of both live-action and animated productions that were heavily and badly affected by either studio interference, studio executive demands, changes, and notes on how a film should be made, ruining the vision of the filmmaker or ruining the intended tone overall of a film or TV show. TV shows and films getting constantly changed during development and being retooled and reworked into a completely different, unrecognizable product. First up on this episode is going to be about the cult classic animated television show that aired on Cartoon Network for 2 seasons, and at first had mixed reception, but since a decade after the show ended and premiered, has since then gained a cult following with audiences. Starting in the year of 2003, shortly after the release of Looney Tunes Back in Action, which in of itself suffered through production hell in of itself from studio interference and removing many elements from the film after the studio completely ruined and changed the product into Joe Dante's vision, leading him to leave Hollywood forever, after this never coming back. After the box office bomb that was Looney Tunes Back in Action, Warner Bros. Was very reluctant in releasing anything Looney Tunes related, staying mostly exclusive to television from this point forward, and mostly reruns of the original 1930 to 1969 theatrical shorts, although with some heavy edits and censorship. And some TV show spin-offs like Duck Dodgers in 2003 that ended in 2005, and the failed, heavily despised futuristic show called Lunatics Unleashed that did terribly with critics and fans that during its development, it got backlash even from a kid, so much they were forced to redesign the characters due to how unintentionally evil and unsettling the characters looked. And the show didn't do well in the ratings, being very unpopular, being cancelled in 2007 after 2 seasons with a cancelled but planned 3rd season. And this show was created by the same team behind SWAT Cats, who did that show the previous decade in 1993 to 1994. Over the years from many failures, all that was mostly airing until that point was a baby spin-off called Baby Looney Tunes. Around 2007, 2008 to 2009, Warner Bros. Was then beginning development and produced a pitch pilot episode to a potential new modernized and rebooted version of Looney Tunes, initially titled Laff Riot, that was going to be a lot more closer to the spirit of the original 1930 to 1969 series, but more so in the tone of the 1940s to 1950s era, with a new character made specifically for the show. The show was originally going to be more slapstick and was going to be a tribute to the original series until executives at Warner Bros. Were not pleased or satisfied with the product, forcing the team to start over from scratch and rework the slapstick comedic show into a sitcom format. Similar to that of Seinfeld, as many have compared the show to, with the characters having different personalities than their original 1940s to 1950s counterparts, with Bugs being more laid back and somewhat of an everyman, putting up with weirdos in his personal life. Daffy is now more so narcissistic and egotistical in this show, and Speedy Gonzales lives in a mouse hole in their home that has frequent appearances every now and then, and became the owner of a newly owned pizzeria. Lola now has more personality compared to her Space Jam counterpart by making her more insane, obsessive, clingy, and very energetic, and infatuated with Bugs, and lives with her rich parents. Tina is a newly introduced character who works at a copy center and becomes Daffy's girlfriend, and is also basically serves as the voice of reason to put Daffy in his place and also call him out on his horrible behavior, including Bugs. Porky is also a recurring character being taken advantage of by Daffy. Macintosh are also recurring characters owning an antique shop. Granny is also another recurring character with a past involved in World War II, and Witch Hazel, Leza, and Gossamer are also recurring characters as well, being a family-like mother and son relationship for some strange reason, as well as Taz being relegated to being a pet instead of an actual character, as well as Sylvester and Tweety, with Jeff Bergman taking over as Sylvester due to the late Joe Alaskey refusing to reprise his role after being unimpressed with the show's results. Other characters that also appear include Yosemite Sam being Bugs' obnoxious next-door neighbor, Elmer is a news anchor for a television network, and as well as Pete Puma and Cecil Turtle, being a villain in one episode, screwing with Bugs' dissatisfaction with the cable service. 2 segments were introduced to the show, such as Merry Melodies, although unlike the original Merry Melodies, these Merry Melodies are more so music videos featuring newly written original songs sung by the characters of the show. And finally, the Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner CGI animated shorts that were only in Season 1, animated by an animation studio in Egypt. But when Season 2 began, production of this was dropped to lower the production costs and the budget of this show. Although Laff Riot was retooled and reworked into the Looney Tunes Show, one element of Laff Riot remains in the Season 1 episode, Casa de Calma, that is more reminiscent of the original 1930 to 1969 theatrical series, and hence the character designs and art style being noticeably different compared to the rest of Season 1 and 2. In Season 2, the Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner shorts were discontinued to cut back on the budget of the show, to give more focus to the plots of the episodes, but still continue doing the Merry Melody segment till the final episode. Not much change here besides the art style change, looking more closer to the style of the original cartoons, while the artist and character designer for Season 1 also did the art and character designs for the Laff Riot pitch pilot, as well as later on with the next Looney Tunes TV show initially titled Wabbit, but later retitled New Looney Tunes. Although at first the show initially received mixed reception by critics in 2011 due to the show being a big contrast to the original theatrical cartoons, switching up from a slapstick screwball comedy to a more grounded sitcom format, instead complete with the characters being given more personality and depth in favor of simple stories of character conflict, drama, and problems being solved by the end or a wacky situation. Which upon its premiere, the show was not liked by many and not received well initially, especially as I myself am guilty of not liking the show back when it premiered in 2011. But since the end of the last decade and the start of this decade, it has since warmed up to many people, and rediscovering it, showing appreciation and more love towards, now being regarded as an underrated, underappreciated, and overlooked and somewhat overhated cult classic that has now gained a cult following with a new audience compared to when the show aired in 2011. And I, back in mid-2024, took the time to revisit the show and watch all 2 seasons of the show to give it a second chance and a better and more proper watch, after my feelings towards the show has since then changed compared to when I watched it in 2011 to 2012, and in 2016 via Boomerang, and have since then taken better appreciation for it than when I did in 2011, when it was airing then. Anyways, that's it for this episode. See you next time in the next episode. See you all next time.